Good morning, Claremont Center for Spiritual Living. How are you this morning? I'm Reverend Tracy, and just delighted to welcome you to our online service. I want to acknowledge each and every one of you for taking the time to tune in, whether you're watching us real time or whether you're catching us later in the week. I'm just delighted that you are a part of this community that is all about love, that is all about remembering the magnificence of life, and learning how to support and love each other through anything and everything. So welcome and thank you again for being here. It was a lot of fun on Sunday to see some of you in person. Those of you that were able to attend, it's a lovely spot in our garden, and I so enjoyed being able to see you, and I know you had a chance to chat with each other a little bit, safely of course, and we look forward to doing that one more time next weekend. And then after that, we'll have to negotiate because the time is going to change. It's going to get dark. Hopefully, it's going to get cooler. So we'll schedule something a little bit different for November. But for last weekend, it was just delightful to see all of you. And today, I'm just happy to be here. Take a moment, if you will, and remember what it's like to sit in the sanctuary. Let's start visioning and seeing ourselves back in our space. And look around this room in your mind's eye and see your friends and the people who sit next to you and in front of you, and turn around and look at the people behind you and send them a smile, send them love, send a little energy their way, and know that as you are doing that, right where you are, they are sending that same energy to you. How lovely is that? This is the truth of who we are as a community. This is the truth of our spiritual family. It's all about love. I want to remind you this morning that prayer support's available to you anytime. Our practitioners have their contact information on our website, ClaremontCSL.org. It's also in the mailings we send out via email every week. Do reach out, ask for that prayer support. Let them know for you the truth, the greater picture of your life and how it is unfolding. Let us be that source of spirit for you whenever you need it for whatever reason. We truly delight in doing that. Your practitioners are here for you, just as they are always holding the consciousness for our community. So this morning we have an extra treat on the video. We have a musical number by Dennis Bryan. He'll be singing a Margaret Owens song for us. The name of the song is Witness, and I know you're going to enjoy that. So let's get started. We'll have Pat come and do our opening invocation and a short reading, but let's start with that moment of quiet, as we always do. So I invite you just to close your eyes and take that deep breath and listen to the sound of the bowl. And as that tone resonates, take yourself into that deeper space of the heart, that place of peace. That place within where we remember that you and I and Spirit are one.
And right here, right now, in this God-filled space, we know that God is here. Just take a big breath and breathe into all that good energy, all that love and light. Breathe into the fog that was here this morning. What a joy it is to have experienced some fog for the last week or so, but some of the gifts the Spirit is providing us, when the fog comes, it's the breath, the air is heavy with like moisture, and you get to breathe and all in that, and let that just kind of renew yourself and your soul, and the spider webs that are on the corner of the gates that are all heavy with the dew. They all, when the sun hits those, it's like sparkles on each little intersection. Oh my gosh, they light up like diamonds. Nature is in her best right now. Lots of gifts, lots of energy. So let everything else fall away and step forward into that and embrace the time of year that it is. Such a gift. So grateful to be here today, grateful to be of service, And please join me in saying, and so it is. So my reading today is from the Guide for Spiritual Living. It's from November 2018. And it's called Let Fear Fall Away Like Leaves. This month, as leaves fall on the ground and winter approaches, Dr. Ernest Holmes turns our attention to overcoming our fears. Throughout the ages, we have lived with fear, anxiety, and worry, often because humanity is interacting with some force that it does not know or fully understand. Some level of fear of the unknown is common to us all, and just under the surface, our fears are often fueled by anxiety surrounding our sense of security, prosperity, acceptance, or worthiness. Holmes defines fear as misplaced faith and an unconstructive use of mental energy that works against our innate wholeness and the wisdom of the universe that resides within. Fears have no power over us and are only perceived to have power through our ignorance of them. When we move to a higher place of consciousness through the art of affirmative prayer, we gain perspective and can be witness to what is really happening. From this higher place, we witness that God is all there is, and that fear is nothing more than a signal toward deeper lessons, if we are willing. Therefore, to be liberated from our fears, we must first turn toward them and ask them what they are here to teach us, and then listen. If we listen carefully, we'll hear the voice of compassion and love, encouraging us to grow into more of our whole self. Then, like leaves, they fall gently, drifting to the ground. We find ourselves bare, open and available, no longer afraid of what others see or don't see on the outside. Instead, we become turned into the deep life force on the inside. The barest tree in the deepest of winter is still very much alive. Travel well.
So we begin with just a little review of what we're doing this month. We're talking about exploring how to bring our spiritual truth to difficult conversations. And this week we're looking at the power of finding common ground. You know, a lot of times we get into a discussion and we come in with helpful information. And then other times we start a conversation because we need to say our point of view. And then there are times that we start with questions and authentic curiosity, and then other times we come in and we're already expecting a fight. We often forget that we share common ground even with our so-called enemies. And so today we're going to talk about the power of common ground. And what does it mean to bring your spiritual truth to the table? Well, first of all, you have to know what your spiritual truth is, right? What is that spirit within you, that place in the very center of your being, where Howard Thurman used to say, you center down. In other words, to go within, to let the world go for a moment, and simply be in that place of the heart, which is love and peace, a deep joy, that inner wisdom, that richness of life that lives within each and every one of us. That is the place of power within us. That is the ultimate common ground, because that space is within each of us. Everyone we meet, every way in which we show up in the world, ultimately comes from that place in the middle of us. But as you know, it gets covered up and distorted, and we get distracted, and what comes out of our mouths sometimes has no relationship to the love that is within. So to begin a difficult conversation requires that first we know who we are in the greater sense, in the bigger picture, in this place of ultimate love. Now the thing is, usually if we're arguing with somebody, or if we're in conflict, or if they're really just making us angry, or we're shutting down, or we're withdrawing, we're not aware of that center space at all. There's no sense of something bigger than I am at work if I am in resistance, or I'm holding a grudge, or I am feeling resentful. Those are not my places of power, although they do seem to overpower me sometimes. That emotional wave that we are all subject to can only be tamed by the consistent spiritual practice that we do, and by training our ways of thinking and seeing, tuning into that bigger picture, rather than being in reaction to whatever's going on around us. So we try to communicate, right? The whole idea of being with people is to communicate with each other. And when it's fun and easy, we're laughing, we're learning something, somebody's teaching us something, we're showing someone else how something works, and there's an engagement and an enthusiasm. But if we are communicating and we think we are communicating clearly, it's important to remember that if we seem to be missing each other, there's probably an assumption going on somewhere. In other words, I think I'm telling you what I'm talking about, and you understand what I'm talking about, except when you don't, and except when I'm not clear. So let's take a common word. Let's take a word like spoon. If I say spoon to you, everybody knows what a spoon is. What kind of spoon did you picture? Was it a wooden spoon? A measuring spoon? Your flatware in the drawer? Maybe it's your grandmother's silver. Maybe it's spoon like when you cuddle up with your honey. Maybe it's a spoonful of sugar. Maybe it's the silver spoon someone is born with in their mouth. You see, we assume that the way we see spoon is the way you hear spoon. And that's not always the case. And if you combine that unintentional assumption with a couple of emotional triggers and a little bit of political divide and perhaps an argument in your relationship, all of a sudden, it's not communication, it's escalation. Your emotions launch, your mind goes blank, and fire comes out of your eyes. Did you know that fire comes out of your eyes? Yeah. And for most of us, we either fight or we run away, and we forget. We forget that, as Ernest Holmes says, we are all children, wanting to be loved and understood, wanting to be appreciated, wanting to have common purposes and common joys, and being willing to share in common troubles. We all want the same things. Where we run into trouble is in how it's presented and how we as listeners hear or don't hear what's really being said. You know, what we're really saying is we want to share. You remember sharing. You had to learn that lesson over and over and over again, particularly in preschool, again when you were a teenager, and some of you have never really outgrown that. But it's that sharing, that understanding. We all want to feel like we're together. We all want to feel like we are part of this web of support, that our heart's desire is being expressed. Instead, we find ourselves lashing out on Facebook, or face-to-face, or mask to no mask. All of a sudden, we're butting heads. We're disagreeing in really loud voices, even when it's just in print. The escalation continues within, and we move into that fight or flight because the ego wants to be right, because when we're right, we're safe. When we're right, we win. And everybody wants to be a winner. Nobody wants to be a loser. And this tug of war between the heart's desire and the human need to have a position and hold it causes us stress and anxiety It causes us to worry. It causes us to be angry. And it all comes from that ultimate fear of not having enough, not being enough, losing what you do have, losing who you are, needing to be seen and heard, just as children need to be loved and accepted. Peter Welch says that there's a tendency in politics, and I would say there's a tendency in everything, to attribute bad motivation much too quickly. And the sooner you attribute bad motivation to someone you disagree with, the harder it is to find some common ground in order to make progress. So you see, when we're in that fight or flight, when we're angry, when we're lashing out at people, and there's name calling and there's bullying and there's, you're so stupid and how could you possibly think that way? And you look at your family members and go, were we raised in the same house? How did that happen? When you feel like you are at polar opposites with an idea or a person, it's really easy to decide that they're doing it for nefarious reasons, that they're out to get you, that they have no respect for you. In other words, we take it personally. And really what's happening is that person speaking from their point of view is just different than you speaking from your point of view. And as we know, especially in science of mind, that the way we look at things, the things that we look for, are the things that we find. And so this arguing, this pushing, this pulling, this living in fear and acting out prevents us from truly finding common ground because we do not feel connected. When we are in fear, we can't hear anything or anyone else. And it's not just others. It's you too. It's me too. I too stop listening when I'm defending my position. I too will attack if I feel attacked, unless I remember that arguments start with opinions and conversations start with curiosity and questions. There's a great illustration of this principle in Alan Cohen's Daily Dose of Sanity. It's a great day book for a way to get a little inspiration every morning. And he's talking about the show that used to be on called Wife Swap. And if you remember, each week, 2 women would change families they would trade places to see what it was like to live in another environment. And of course, because it's TV, they would pick the most opposite families you could possibly think of. A hippie mom and a materialistic yuppie. A ballerina and a Cajun swamp explorer. And he says, my favorite, a hardcore tattooed weightlifter and a fairy princess who conducts tea parties for neighborhood girls. Well, this isn't going to go well, right? So mom moves in. She's going to run the family for the time that she's there. And of course, the family is who they are, right? Both mothers freak out in their alien environments. They try to convert the other family, and of course they meet with resistance and conflict, and the host family resents the intruders, and eventually mothers and families relax a bit and begin to learn about each other and from each other. So Alan Cohen talks about how this actually is part of the law of attraction. Now you think, like attracts like, but there's a dynamic happening here, and this is the same dynamic that happens between us when we disagree or when we feel threatened by another idea or another philosophy. What happens is each wife and family harbored resistance to the opposite lifestyle. In other words, they weren't just happy with their own lifestyle, they believed that the opposite lifestyle was wrong. And they were proving it so by living at the other extreme. Far ends, far apart, polarities. This is why opposites attract when they do. When there is resistance, there is something to be learned. Where am I resistant in my life? Where are you resistant in your life? Apparently there's a lesson in there we're supposed to find. The law of attraction serves to create balance. It brings together people who do not like or understand each other so they can soften, open, learn, grow, and achieve harmony with their inner and outer worlds. If you hold a judgment or resistance against a person or an ideology, the universe will often move you to face that individual or belief, right? Right? Something you really don't like will show up right in your face. Can't get away from it. And while you may fight the experience, you can also consider the encounter a gift. When you can love your enemy of opposites, your world will not be destroyed, which is what the ego thinks is going to happen. Your world will in fact be expanded. When I give up trying to force others to do things my way, I create space for something to happen, for something to unfold, for something to be learned. For me, the other person, some magical third way that shows up nobody was expecting. But I have to make the space for that to happen. I have to decide I'm going to step back and not fight. I'm going to step back and calm down. I'm going to wait and see what is true for me so that I can bring my authentic self to the conversation. Finding common ground with others usually happens in the small things. Pat had an incident. She's at work. It's a corporate environment, a bunch of suits in an elevator, everybody. Out of a casual conversation, she finds out one of the guys is from upstate New York, which is where she's from. It was a feeling of instant connection and camaraderie, and all of a sudden there were things to talk about, and this was a perfect stranger. This was someone she didn't know before. And that feeling of making that initial connection came from a small, seemingly inconsequential conversation. So it's the feeling when we discover something new. Because you see, when we're finding common ground, the emphasis is on the finding. In other words, we're looking for it. We're seeking. We're discovering and uncovering the connection that's already there. See, the alienation and animosity comes from thinking that we have nothing in common. We have nothing to talk about. I don't like what you stand for. I don't like what you say. I don't like that philosophy. I can't stand looking at the world that way. These judgments and decisions that we've made that create who we think we are actually keep us from finding the connections that are already there. The common hobby or interest, the history we might share, the stories that we tell that we can each relate to. They only happen when there's space to talk, when there's space to share, when there's a reason to listen. It takes patient listening. It takes, like we were talking about this the first week of October, it takes that curiosity, that being willing to stop and ask someone to tell you more about what they mean rather than bouncing back with why you disagree. It takes an invitation to connect. And what we find ultimately, the deeper common ground that we share is in our values. It's in what is important to each of us. We all want the best for our children. We all want to make a decent living. We all want to live and express and be creative. Every one of us. And those values actually form the foundation that we can build a relationship on, even if how we think we're supposed to get there are worlds apart. central quote for today is from Jim Wallace. He says, "We can find common ground only by moving to higher ground." And sometimes that higher ground is that perspective we obtain when we go deep within to remember the love that is the energy of all life, of everyone's life. So before you go into battle with someone, center yourself in that ultimate common ground, that place within, that place where the power of life is right there inside of you, ready to be expressed. And if you're in the middle of conflict and seemingly so far apart, pause your own opinion for a moment. Pause your own opinion and seek to understand. Be curious. Ask questions. Affirm what you hear. Not agree with what's being said necessarily, but acknowledge that you heard it. Acknowledge that it causes someone else distress or that it brings someone else to peace. Acknowledge what you're hearing from the heart of the person across from you, even if you don't agree. And afterwards, move into that place of higher ground, of a higher perspective, a spiritual view of the unfolding of the big picture. What goes beyond this one particular conversation? Remember, we're uncovering what's already there. And even when it seems like we're so different, I've traveled this path of my life and I've ended up here, and you've traveled yours and you've traveled yours, and we're ending up in all different places, and we've all had these experiences. We bring our own baggage with us, as you know, and yet here we are in the same room facing each other. How could there possibly be common ground? We're coming from such different places. But listen to this. This is from Marcus Vitruvius Polio, and I apologize, I don't know who he is, but I love what he said. He says, astronomers have a common ground for discussion with musicians in the harmony of the stars and musical concords in tetrads and triads of the fourth and the fifth, and with geometricians, those people who study geometry, in the subject of vision, and in all other sciences. Many points, perhaps all, are common, so far as the discussion of them is concerned. But the actual undertaking of works and its manipulation is the function of those who have been especially trained to deal with a single art. In other words, the experts have taken a deep dive into one subject, but that doesn't change the fact that all of the subjects share a language of harmony. Math and music, we hear of that being related to each other all the time. Kids that have music in school do better in math. There is an underlying language of life that we all share and understand, regardless of how specialized we are in our beliefs and our opinions and our actions. Our call is to open up to that harmony in a new way, to find that common ground within ourselves and to look for it with others. So ask yourself, how can you move to higher ground, to a place of harmony in your own life? Ask yourself, what step, large or small, what step will you take today to find or discover common ground with someone else? The power is already yours. Blessings on your journey. Namaste. So if you will, join me in a moment of prayer. Taking that deep breath and allowing the words to simply fall away and feel that sense of connection that you have with your own being. Breathing out of this body, in and out. Picturing the people in your life that you love. Feeling perhaps the breeze or the sun, whatever is moving around you. Taking in the sounds of the world. Know that right here in this moment, life is expressing around you, through you, in you. That each and every one of us is this life in form. And it is a life of love. It is a power and an energy of wisdom and deep joy. And it is an activity of transformation and evolution, always and in all ways. And so I speak my word for this perfect unfoldment of life. I trust and know that what appears to be chaos and discord is simply life expressing and seeking common ground. I trust and know that we are sure to find that common ground, for it is already in place as the very energy of life that each of us expresses. I choose to make room in my life for understanding, for questions, for curiosity. I allow my mental gymnastics to quiet down so that I might hear more clearly and pause in my own opinions and conclusions. For I know that the only conclusion there is love. And I know that I am called to express that love in ever greater ways, and it is sure to happen, for it is the unfolding of Spirit right here, right now, in me, in everyone, in our culture, in every arena of our activity on the planet. This love that transforms, this compassion that allows us to live with each other in peace, this place where I stand, which is holy ground, is common to us all. And in that knowing, I am grateful. I am thankful. I so appreciate that there is a place for me anywhere and everywhere. And I willingly, lovingly, and in kindness make space for everyone else to find their place. So trusting this energy of life that we are all in together, trusting this perfect transformation and unfolding and evolution of our world through each and every one of us, I simply allow it to be and release my word into law. For in God there is only perfection. It is all good and very good and getting better all the time. For this is truly our nature and the nature of life. And I simply let it be. And so it is.
Hi everyone, it's Dennis Bryan here. I thought I would share this song with you. It's written by one of my favorite human beings, Margaret Owens, and it's my favorite song of hers. It's called Witness. Have you noticed how the blossoms will spare their scent for anyone? For to fight its flowering nature would surely mean to perish. And you yourself are similar. You can share your gifts with anyone, for only what's worth offering is ever really cherished. And so God, let me be a witness to the power of your giving. God, let me witness that power through me. My heart, it never will be empty. like the sun that hangs above me, doesn't have to work to shine. I need only just to open, to have this season of giving be mine. As I ask for strength and clarity and the willingness to trust, I am confident it's happening. I am confident it must. And so God, let me be a witness to the power of your giving. God, let me witness that power through me. My heart, it never will be empty, immersed in the truth I'm living. As I declare, so it shall be. On and on, like a daily resurrection, urging me to roll the stone away. And on flows a heavenly connection, manifesting in my soul today. And so God, let me be a witness to the power of your giving. God, let me witness that power through me. My heart, it never will be empty, immersed in the truth I'm living. As I declare, so it shall be. And as I declare, so it shall
All right, I have an affirmation for you. If you would like to repeat after me, please. Nice and loud. I want to be able to hear you. We stand on holy ground. I actively seek to understand what we have in common so that we might live together in peace. And so it is. Thank you all. All right, a little bit about what's going on at the center. I want to thank Dennis for sharing his song with us, for sharing Margaret Owen's song, Witness, with us. That is just stunning. Just always a delight to be able to hear Dennis sing. We have 2 more Friday mornings of donuts, coffee and donuts at 9 o'clock in the garden. So if you'd like to come, you've got this Friday and the Friday after. So October is it. Bring your coffee, bring your chair, bring your mask. I'll bring the donuts. And we have great conversation, and it's a great way to just kind of connect with each other a little bit safely, in person, out in our beautiful meditation garden, which is looking lovely these days. All right, let's see. Wednesday night coming up, I believe Clyde is our speaker. He's going to continue his conversation from a couple weeks ago on the social consciousness we have around racism, how that's developed through history and where we are now. He is an excellent speaker with a lot of great ideas for us to talk about and kind of chew on and open up a little bit to a new way of looking at things. So we welcome Clyde on Wednesday night. That's at 7 o'clock via Zoom. You'll find the link in the email or on our website. And before that, of course, at 6:15, we also have our call-in meditation with practitioner Nisa Burrows. So if you join us at 6:15, she'll take you through a guided meditation, which is a lovely way to start the evening on Wednesday night. Next week, again, as I said, we'll be in the garden in person at 5 o'clock for our service. So we won't have the talk posted until Monday morning, but those of you that can come in person, we welcome you. Again, wear your mask and bring your chair. You can bring a beverage if you like, because we're outside. And join us if you can. And for those of you that are unable or choose not to show up in person just yet, just know that you are included and loved and blessed as being part of our circle in the evening when we meet. So just as you are right now online. And I do want to say that next Sunday night will be our last nighttime service. So come November, if we are meeting in person, it will be in the morning. It should have cooled off a bit by then. And whether we're indoors or outdoors will totally depend on the health department. And if it's possible, we'll move back into the sanctuary. And if not, we'll set up a schedule and a time when it's still cool enough in the mornings that we might meet comfortably. So we'll keep you posted on that. Watch for the announcements to see when we'll meet again. And until next week in the garden, please know that you are loved.